Okay, I believe. Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I believe I should be starting. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. ربي زدني علما. ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To everybody who's joined this Zoom session, it's lovely to be here, and I just want to thank Al-Emaan Center for inviting me on their wonderful platform to share some words with you around maintaining family ties. So I'm going to be doing this in two parts. So today's session, I'll be looking at a particular aspect of maintaining family ties. And I believe I will be with you again on the 10th of April. 10th of May, inshallah. So I will be touching upon the second part, and I'll explain as I go along. So in terms of maintaining family ties, in terms of my background and where I spend a lot of my time in the community is around helping families to bond and helping families to reconnect, but also families in trouble, families in difficulty, who are separated from their children, their loved ones, also how to bring that back. So broken ties, how to mend broken ties. And time again, I find that particularly our generation of parents, we the middle generation, so we have our own parents and we are taking care of our children. It then becomes very, very difficult for us actually to maintain family ties in different respects. So we as siblings, as parents, as children, but also we're uncles and aunts and many other roles that we have. So today my focus, I really actually wanted to focus on the experience I've had with families is actually when we look at our children, we are we should be their most wonderful role model. As Muslim parents, we should be their most wonderful role models they can look up to, where they learn their adab from, where they learn how to their social skills, how to socialize. And actually most of the learning happens at home. So being an educator and looking at how children learn from early years to actually at university, we see that time and time again, research shows that actually most of children's learning happens at home around people who are raising them. So whether you're living in extended families, nuclear families, children are learning from your behavior, our behavior in how they interact with other people. So today I wanted to focus actually on our relationship with our parents. And we're in the first 10 days of Ramadan. And as we know, the first 10 days of Ramadan are the days of mercy. And how does that look in terms of our life, particularly during this difficult time we're also traversing through. And it's been a blessing on one side, but it's also been difficult where we are separated from family members for many of us. And for children, it's also been a difficult time. So if we actually want children to learn good behavior, good morals, good adab, we actually have to think, how are we behaving? How do we relate ourselves to our own parents? So if we want good behavior from our children to us, they are watching how we behave towards our own parents. So today, my focus actually is around our relationship with our parents, and I will try to bring in some practical examples and related to life, because as we know, alhamdulillah, majority of us has been told in talks time and time again. We've also learned, we've read the Quran, that there are many verses and the pedestal that the parents are put on, and we all know these verses, but actually what does it mean in practical life? And normally when I do any presentations, I like to relate it to and make it how does it resonate with our own lives, and how do we practice that in our everyday lives? So the first verse I wanted to look at, majority of the verses are from Surah Al-Isra. The first verse is verse 23, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And your Lord has decreed that you not worship except him, and to parents good treatment." So if you look at good treatment varies from person to person, family to family, individuals to individual. but also spouse to spouse. So we could be in a, and depending on how we are in that relationship, how do we relate to each other's parents, our own parents? So what does good treatment look like? And in that sense, if you have some high expectations from your children, what does good treatment from do you expect from your own children? So normally, if I expect good treatment from my children, I would like them to listen, and when I mean listen, I mean it now. So if I ask them to do something, I would like them to listen immediately. If I ask them to stop doing something, I would like them to respect that. If I ask them to dress in a particular way, I would like them to uh, honor that, but also in terms of having being a good worshipper. So in terms of being a good Muslim. So in that should build within us good treatment and good behavior. So again, if you want good treatment, we need to know how to behave in a particular way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very clear in the same verse that whether one or both of them reach old age while with you, say not to them so much as "uff," and do not repel them, but speak to them a noble word. Now, I would like to use my own example, and some of the work that I do with parents is that I work a lot with young people, teenagers, so young adults, and if you think about the two groups of people who say a lot of "uffs" are the young adults and us as parents. So we are also using a lot of that in our language as well. So when we say "uff," "uff" is the most simplest sign of dissatisfaction that one can show towards another person. So when we're annoyed, when we are something doesn't go our own way, it's so easy to say "uff." And here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not even a hadith, it's a verse from the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directly saying to us, don't say "uff" to them. And when are they saying that? When our parents reach old age. Now, if you think about us as parents, we are at the peak of our life when our parents actually um, need us. So they've turned into elders and into seniority when we are at the peak of our life, when our children need us the most, when the home life is very demanding, our spouses want time from us, we are working full time, possibly two of us, both spouses are working full time. Some of us could be separated, some of us could be divorced, some of us could be living in different countries. So actually, when you think about that relationship, and the tension and the pressure that we are under, it is so easy to say "oof." And it's so interesting that when you look at this cycle of relationship, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, reminding us uh, to not say "oof," is to make us realize that when you are at your peak, when you are at your height of anxiety, height of stress, and height of responsibility, this is the time you need to actually respond and think. How are you respond? Sorry, think and evaluate and reflect. How are you reaching out to your parents? Now, if your parents are living with you, that's one particular scenario. If your parents are living away from you, that's another scenario. And I just remember when my mum was alive, that subhanallah, on a daily basis, I used to receive at least 3 to 5, if not more, phone calls from her. Is everything simply just to ask, have you eaten? Have you come home? Are the children at home? Are you safe? What was work like? So just that catch up. But you know, whenever she used to phone, I used to think, "Oh, couldn't there be a better time?" But you keep that within you, and you respond to the phone call. But actually, your children are watching you. They're observing. They're soaking and they're absorbing that relationship between you and your parents. And so it doesn't take much for them when you calling them at an inappropriate time, according to their life. They will also turn around and say, "Oh, can you not just ask me this later? Can you not give me a few more minutes, just another minute?" This is resonates in every house. You ask a child to do something, and just another minute. Have we caught ourselves saying that to our parents? So and now that my mom's not around, I miss those calls in Ramadan, in on special days, just those everyday phone calls. there isn't somebody looking out for you. So it's parents that do. And when they reach old age, it again comes with a set of problems that they have: health problems, dementia. Uh, these are testing times for us as children to be able to take care of our parents. And many of us have the privilege of being able to do that in person when they're living with you, but actually when they're far from you, it's very difficult. And how do we do that? I just wanted to highlight a few scenarios. So one thing is how espouses, and these are questions for you to think about and respond to in your own head, and maybe we'll have a chance to discuss it at the end when there's a bit of time for question answer. But actually, how do you respond to each other's parents? So how do I respond to my spouse's parents, and how does he respond to my parents? So do we give each other the honor? I'm not even talking about parents here. Do we give each other the space and honor to serve our parents in the way we should and want to? Yeah. So again, the spousal relationship, there has to be that a degree of dignity and respect that you need to serve. We each need to serve our parents. Now, if it so happens that my parents call me a lot during the day, should it be my spouse's response that why do they call so much? Can they not find better time to call? Or should it be that, as long as you're getting on and you can manage your lifestyle and your duties, is it should it be curtailed? Should that relationship be curtailed? Or should we be serving every time that our parents need us? Do our children see us drop everything for our parents, just as we are expecting them to drop everything that they're doing for us? So again, the modeling comes here. The other, I can relate to a very recent case where the spouses, the mother came, the wife came and said to me that, my husband really doesn't like me going to my parents as often as I'd like to. Sometimes after work, I would go and visit them and come home. He doesn't like that. I've had uh, wives who don't like their husbands going and visiting their parents, and on that visit, it may so happen that the mother has cooked something nice and she wants her son to have it, or the father wants to have a chat and go through his accounts. Whatever the scenario, maybe I've just given very bog standard examples, but it's those kind of things that we need to have more flexibility and mercy towards each other's parents, because they need us in that time. They might be lonely, they might just need to hear our voice. And through that comes dua. So we really need to remind each other as spouses that we have a duty to take care of not only our own parents. If it can extend to looking after each other's parents and being merciful to them, it is in our best interest, in our own interest, in our akhirah, that we should be doing this. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that if we are single parents, or we are parents in conflict, we're going through difficulties, separation, divorce, or just conflict, different views on how we see things. How does that manifest when it comes to relationship with our children? There are many parents who use children as tools to get at the other parent. There are many parents who would stop the children seeing their grandparents. Now, we think we are the gatekeepers to these relationships, but ultimately they do not pay off. That kind of negative sort of behavior, and I'm obviously talking about very generalized scenarios here, but there could be very different reasons why people keep away from certain families. But on a general ruling, we need to be very, very careful in how we help our children navigate different difficult situations. And we should never, as much as we can, unless they're in danger of some sort, stop them from seeing their grandparents. And that's so important, because it's through the grandparents they learn so much, but also the lineage, the connection is through that. So again, the word has so much within that word, in the way it's being used in this verse. So also it's saying, do not repel them, but speak to them a noble word. So whenever we can, we should have mercy in the way we treat them, how we speak to them, our body language, our tone. These need to be really, really, we need to be very, very thoughtful in the way, and considerate in the way we speak to our parents. And some of us, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, I'm a grandmother, and I don't consider myself to be an elder to that degree. But at the same time, my heart would break to pieces if I couldn't see my grandchild. If two parents are in conflict, and I'm losing out on that relationship with my grandchild, in the research that I've been doing in my own personal research at a university, I have found that actually the children end up resenting both parents because they grow up one day, they understand, and they get to see what the world as it should be and is, and they end up resenting both parents. So really, when we do what we do, it doesn't end in a positive way. So bear that in mind, that are we actually subconsciously using our children as a tool? And if we are, please reconsider, and allow children to have access to their grandparents, because this is a really special bond that is so important for both parties, the grandparents as well as the the children. The other verse that I wanted to highlight is about non-Muslim parents. Does it matter? We have many new Muslims in our community. Does it mean that they don't revere and they don't honor their parents like they would if they were Muslim? And that's not the case. As we know in Surah Al-Emaan, verse 15, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but if they, and they don't have to be actually non-Muslim, they could also be Muslim parents who may want to force you to associate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which you have no knowledge. In that case, if they're asking you to commit shirk, in that situation, you do not have to obey them, but in this verse it said, but accompany them in this world with appropriate kindness. So we actually, when it comes to us as children, we have not, it's not even an obligation, it's an obligation upon an obligation. It's part of this, it's incumbent on us to be dutiful to our parents, regardless of who they are and what they are. So many times young people or couples will come and say, well, my parents are, I had mental health issues because of my parents. I have suffered so much at the hands of my parents. Now, when you become adults, you have a choice. We all have choice. Now we have a choice of the pain you've been through for whatever reason. We may need to heal, and that's a reality. So we all may need to heal, but at the same time, as a Muslim, we have to come to a place of reconciliation in our hearts, that we are at a place to forgive our parents. They may have made mistakes because the lackings in their own upbringing, in their own understanding, in whatever situation they raised us, that is left with our parents' experiences. But in terms of where we are, we have a duty to actually heal and find a position, come to a place where we can, if we can't rebuild that relationship, we can at least forgive them. And I know it's easier said than done, but this is something that we, as a community, I think we need to get better at helping one another do this. So just to reiterate this verse, it says, but if they endeavor to make you associate with me that of which you have no knowledge, do not obey them, but accompany them in this world with appropriate kindness. So the choice we actually don't have is to break ties with family. It's obligatory on us to contain and maintain our family ties, regardless of who the perpetrator, and I say that in quotes, who the perpetrator is. If it's our parents we feel that are difficult, we cannot stop that contact. We have to keep it open as safely as possible, even if it's a minimum of whatever that minimum might be to you, that you have to keep that door of mercy open, because they are our path to Jannah, inshallah. The other aspect is that actually, does our duty stop when they pass? Now, isn't it amazing that even through their passing, we can continue modeling being a good child to our children, so that they can see us revering our parents even after their passing. So in this hadith, it says, when a person dies, his actions come to an end, except in one of three ways: a continuing act of charity, a useful contribution to knowledge, or a righteous child who prays for their parents. So make it visible to your children. When you're making dua for your parents, make it visible. When you're serving your parents, make it visible. So it's a teaching opportunity for your children to learn how to treat elders in their community and respect their own grandparents. And I'm sure you've all come across this hadith where Abu Huraira quoted the Prophet ﷺ as saying, "He is doomed, he is doomed, he is doomed." Someone said, "O Messenger of Allah," he answered, "Who is it, O Messenger of Allah?" The person, and Prophet ﷺ responded by saying, "The person whose parents, one or both of them, reach old age during his lifetime, but it does not enter paradise." So what loss can it be for us as Muslims where we lose out on this opportunity of entering paradise, entering Jannah, where we can be kind to our parents, be compassionate towards them, if you can't say anything good, keep quiet. It's better than saying things that are hurtful to your parents. And when even sometimes I used to, now that my children are older, I understand when they say, "Oh, I remember when you did this, Mom, when we were younger, you did this." And it really hurts because you didn't intend to do it. You can't even remember it, but they remember it as a memory. So again, just be conscious how you relay certain information about your own upbringing, because according to your parents, they did the best they could with the resources that they had. So we just need to be more appreciative, show gratitude, and that's the first step, I guess, in being merciful to our parents. But clearly, one of the things that I wanted to really highlight is that even if it's in your personal self-interest to raise your children with good manners, be good to your parents. It will pay off. It will open a door of Jannah for you, because ultimately the intention is a good one. If you find relationships with your parents difficult, just look at your children and say, for their sake, I will do this. I will learn to forgive. I will learn to ease my pain and hurt that I may have gone through in my own upbringing. I just wanted to end with this dua. We all know, so in this month of mercy, in this month of forgiveness, in this month of God consciousness, we need to do this dua as much as possible. Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. So, my Lord, have mercy upon my parents as they brought me up when I was small, with all the difficulties, hardships, sleepless nights. I see my son and daughter-in-law now, how they go through their sleepless nights with their little one, and it breaks my heart. And now they say, "SubhanAllah, is this what you went through with us? 24/7, how did you do it?" So again, it's being able to share stories, share lots and lots of stories of your parents with your children, to show the love that you have for them, inshallah. So again, just to reiterate the dua, Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira, and to say that may Allah give us all the opportunity to earn our Jannah through our parents, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Ruby. Before we go any further, could I just sincerely apologise for the lack of introduction? We had a few technical issues. Just while we're waiting for perhaps questions to come through on the chat, can I just give you the introduction while we're waiting?
Sure.
Yeah, so I'll take it from the top. So tonight our special guest is Dr. Mahera Ruby. Mahera is currently a teaching fellow at UCL and completed her PhD at Goldsmiths, University of London, in the Department of Education in 2015. Mahera is a personal development, parenting and youth coach. She set up Blooming Parenting in 2012 with a vision to reshape and strengthen families and communities through facilitating bespoke parenting courses. Mahera supports parents to nurture their children and youth to blossom into the gifts that they truly are. The youth courses challenges the young people to explore and reflect on who they are, who they want to be, and the legacies they want to leave behind. Mahera has authored many publications. She has co-authored her first book, Interconnecting Worlds, Teacher Partnerships in Bilingual Learning, and her latest book, Family Jigsaws, Grandmothers as the Missing Piece, Shaping Bilingual Children's Learner Identities, has been published by the International Education Press. Mahera is also a community organiser. She was the chair of Muslimat UK and is currently a director trustee at Markfield Institute of Higher Education and an East London Mosque trustee. Mahera is involved in many interfaith projects and activities. She is an executive member of Tower Hamlets Citizens. So that's what I should have said to begin with, Mahera. So apologies for that.
That's fine, no worries.
Yeah, Jazakallah for your presentation. Just while we're waiting, actually, I think there's a question come up there. Can you see that?
No, I mean, I can only see a couple of comments.
I'll read it out. So the question is, how do you manage when parents are overseas and are old or frail? Other than helping them financially and speaking to them regularly, sometimes I feel helpless.
Yes, I think that is a real reality and a real difficulty that we all face. But you know, the most powerful thing is to understand what the parents feel. So I think they appreciate any contact you have with them. And all I would say is that, you know, sometimes it's the spontaneity that is so powerful. So in the middle of work one day, if time zones allow, is just to drop a call to the parents, because they know you've dropped everything to make that call, to send pictures that kids draw. It's more the things that they can hold and touch and feel, because we've come into the age of technology where they see everything on Skype and video links, but the joy in receiving a drawing from a child through the post, it's just so powerful. So what we, in part of our research, we produce these little postcards, and how children can communicate between them and their grandparents. So it's actually just receiving mail is so wonderful, because to be honest, our parents are still old school, and even now we enjoy receiving letters. So it's those gifts, little gifts through the post from each child as a special thing. So it's really maintain that connection, but ultimately it's also for the children to know that they're doing something that's meaningful, because often you'll find after a particular age, children really don't want to say hi, hello on the phone as much. It tapers off, especially if it's in a different language as well. So really to keep up that communication in drawings and sending things through the post.
Jazakallah. I had one question myself, actually. So you mentioned the word oof. I'm assuming that also includes rolling of the eyes and tutting.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what the children catch up on very quickly. They catch on to that very quickly. And once they're teenagers, they'll say, "You rolled your eyes at Nan, I saw you." You know, you put the phone down and went, "Oh." So they pick up on these things. So we try really hard on the phone to be polite, to be merciful, but actually they see the before and after as well. And it's the energy we create, I guess, around us.
Sorry, yeah, no, I was just saying, because when I was young, I was taught not to say oof. And I used to think, I never say oof.
But then would you be rolling your eyes?
Completely.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a comment here. I fondly remember my parents writing letters to this blue overseas envelope paper to their parents in Pakistan. Yeah, they're invaluable, just receiving something through the post. And also, you know, one of the things about parents, and there's another hadith, that's we should actually know who their friends are. So we, as children, we should really know who the close friends of our parents are. And there's such wisdom in that, because when you keep in touch with you know, after my mom's passing, all the aunties she was really, really close to, I feel such a connection with them because I see bits of her in them. So it's really incredible that we are asked to keep this connection with it, know who their friends are, and to also reach out to them and look after them and be merciful to them as well, because there's parts of our parents in them. And it's, you know, experiences, stories, so many stories I hear from these aunties about my mum that I didn't know about her. So they're a huge wealth of resource in our community, these, our elders as a collective. So again, if your parents are abroad, find out who their close friends are near them, just to phone and find out. That also builds connection between them.
Jazakallah. Mahera, I was also sort of thinking that I often find it quite stressful, sort of getting my kids to sort of perform well in front of my parents, because they live further afield. They don't get the same contact as they may do with my wife's parents, sort of face to face, and so it then becomes, a sort of a stress to be able to get them to speak on the phone nicely, to deliver the conversation really smoothly, so that it's a good experience for the grandparents and it's a good experience for everyone. And it then just becomes, like I said, a slightly anxious situation. Did you have any advice on that?
Yes. So my question would be, who do they need to perform well for? Because when we have interviewed grandparents, they don't want these polished conversations. They just want to see their grandchildren play, be themselves. Often we find that the parents feel anxious because somehow it reflects on their parenting. So if we just learn to relax and let children be children, they will improve on their own. When we set a bar for them that's quite high, they just play up. So because they really don't know what the rules of engagement here are, particularly if they're young children. So if you give them a bit of freedom and they, doing handstands on the sofa, the grandparents will enjoy, hopefully, seeing that. It's our anxiety of what this perfection looks like, and how they should behave. Have they combed their hair? Are they wearing good clothes? Are they saying salam properly? Because somehow we've taught them to do things properly. Can you just perform now? It then becomes a performance. Whereas it should be natural. The more natural those interactions can be, the more confident children will feel just being who they are, and slowly start to engage for making meaningful engagement for themselves. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I think it's just to relax the environment a bit more, and allow the children, maybe before you make those calls, what is it that you want to do? Would you like to be drawing while they watch you draw this? So making maybe involving them in this episode of performance, with them, that what would they like to show their grandparents, what would they like to do, that their grandparents can see. And I think sometimes it's the language barrier for many children that stops, and they get anxious around that, because we often try to correct them mid-sentence. Again, if they are speaking another language with their grandparents, please refrain from correcting them. Let them, and if their grandparents laugh at them, they don't mind it. But if parents laugh at them, it becomes an issue. There's a mutuality between grandparents and grandchildren that we can never enter and break, or do. So they get each other. So we just need to step back a little bit. And the other thing is it possible to allow the grandchildren just to communicate with the grandparents if they're of a particular reasonable age, and you move out the way for a little while? Just let them be with their grandparents. What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly. Another question, just on the chat. How do we manage parents who have a stiff upper lip, who are trying to look after them, but they want to continue to be careless with medicine or the food they eat whilst they have an underlying health issue? I think that's along the line of stubborn parents, from what I can tell.
Yeah. What do you tend to do with stubborn children? If you have stubborn children, how do you manage stubborn children? We try to get them to understand. We will repeat things. We will go to them again and again and again. We may, just as we would deal with our children, the same kind of mercy and effort needs to be there for our parents. And it's harder because obviously we expect them to be more understanding, but actually, are they? They've had a particular life where they've been independent all their life, and now they're having to give up that independence. It's not easy. So that's where the mercy is required, that to understand that how hard it can be to give up your independence and your sense of dignity, that somebody else has to help you, even if that's your child. So there's a lot of emotional feelings and ego and sense of dignity and pride that we really need to deal very gently and carefully with. And I'm certain, what I'm saying is so much easier said than done, but again, that's where our effort should be, how we are.
Jazakallah. Another question here saying, you mentioned righteous offspring who pray for you as rewards when you pass. Do you lose out on these good deeds if you don't have children?
No, you do not if you look after other children. So as a community, as a collective, we have neighbors, we have nieces, we have nephews. We can influence, we can have a circle of influence where there are young people that will look up to us as parents. And we have that role. So if you are we are all in a position of, where we can have a circle of influence. And within that circle of influence do include children, neighbors, extended family, friends, because everyone needs a mentor. And what wonderful role to play for somebody who may desperately need a mentor, a guide, somebody who's looking out for them. So I think, in a way, it's Allah's will that we cannot have children for whatever reason. We don't have children, but there's enough children in the community to be able to take care, reach out to, inshallah.
Jazakallah. There is one live question, but my laptop's just crashed. So I'm just going to see if I can open up the mic to the participant and see if they can ask the question. So just give me.
Sure. I believe 7-year-old.
That's right.
Yes.
Sure, just 1 second. I will unmute the child. Bear with me. He's actually my son, funny enough.
Oh, mashallah. Brace yourself.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be a good one.
No performance.
Assalamu alaikum.
My name is Said, and my question is, what du'as do I read for my grandparents who are alive and who have passed away?
Oh, mashallah. For dua, you don't have to necessarily recite in Arabic. Dua is what you feel in your heart. Dua is what you want to make dua for. What is it that you want to say for them? What is it that you want Allah to do for them? And it can come from your heart in a language that you feel comfortable with. Again, Rabbi Irhamhuma Kama Rabbayani Saghira can be applied to grandparents. I don't believe there's specific du'as for grandparents per se, but du'a where you extend your love and ask Allah to protect them, ask Allah to reward them for all their good deeds, forgive them for any mistakes they may have made, and they can be done in English, in whatever language you feel comfortable in, and aren't they lucky that they have you, mashallah. So sometimes it's when you miss them, it's a dua. If you remember your grandparents and you miss them, and you cry because you miss them, that's dua. So it's any way to express your love for them and seeking Allah to protect them and to have mercy on them, to forgive them. That's a lot from that what we can do for them, inshallah. I hope that answers your question. If anybody else has any better response, please contribute.
Jazakallah khair.
So I think there's one more or a couple more questions on the chat. So I'm a revert to Islam and my parents are atheists. Any advice on how I can best promote our relationship? Sometimes I feel they don't understand me and I've stopped talking about religion as it just creates arguments. That makes me sad as I want them to see the beauty of Islam.
Yes. So I actually work with the New Muslim Project in London, and time and time again we say to our New Muslim sisters that, you know, their path to Islam is, understanding of Islam is through you. You being the best daughter you can be, you being the doing shopping for them, loving them, honoring them, not saying off to them. They just need to see that you haven't, or depending on what the situation was before, but you've become a better person because of the deen. That's the most powerful message you can give them. Personally, if religion is a sore point, there's really no point, because they'll see the religion through your practice, through your example, and how you, if you have children, how you encourage your children to relate to them. So really going out of your way, going the extra mile to make their life easy and enjoyable, and they can say it's because my daughter, it must be because of her faith. So again, we can shout it from the rooftops about our faith, but if it's not in our practice, it wouldn't make much difference. So welcoming them to your home. Again, if you're married and your spouse is able to be loving to them, these are stronger messages than putting a Quran in their hand and talking about this verse and talking about terrorism doesn't exist in our faith. It really doesn't help when parents have blocked Islam from their psyche. So what they need to see is you. For instance, Asma radiallahu anha, when her mother came, she was asked to stand up and greet her mother, and she wasn't Muslim. So again, it's what the respect and honor we show our parents. That's the most powerful message we can give. And give sadaqah in their name. Make dua for them, give sadaqah in their name to soften their hearts, inshallah.
There's another question. What do you say to the children who do not acknowledge our opinions? They call us the boomers as if we have no knowledge. How do we tackle these young adults?
That's for the 10th, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. But all I will say for today is, if you are in that situation, I would love for you to actually reflect on your parenting and think about the number of corrections you're making over the opportunities to connect to your child. How connected are you to your child before you are in a position to correct? So, just bear in mind, how connected am I to my child, and what else can you do to connect to your child? In the absence of a relationship, there's not much we can do.
Jazakallah khair. I think that's about as much time as we have today.
Okay.
So Jazakallah khair again for a fantastic presentation and some lovely answers in the Q&A. Could I ask you to finish with a short dua and wrap up, inshallah. Jazakallah.
سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Jazakallah khair, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Please keep me and my family in your du'as.